Hello, I'm Azai. Welcome back to Christmas Tina. Ugh. Today I just got my first shot of the vaccine. And thankfully it's a holiday. So I wasn't really in any... Like, I wasn't tired or anything. People said that they get tired after they got shot. Thankfully for me, I didn't have any big reactions. I was just pretty much sleepy. That's about it. So after I got shot, after like, what, 2 hours, 3 hours, I fell asleep. Only for about an hour, though. So here I am. I said, fuck it. I was starting to get lazy, and I thought, maybe I'm not gonna record a video for this. But I'm like, I am curious about what's gonna happen to the story. So let's continue, shall we? Chapter 12, damn. I guess this game has about, what, 25 chapters? Who knows, maybe 20. But I think at least 15. Hopefully it's still quite a bit longer. So let me try to remember what happened the last episode. I know that we got closer to Emmy, but not necessarily with Kana. I do remember Kana and Jing talking when they were trying to search for the cat. And they did get a bit closer. I think that was the last thing that we saw, right? Jing was trying to tell Kana that there was a job for her, but refrained. So I guess this is after that scene? I think so. I stretched myself and sat up on my futon. Light streamed into the room when I opened the curtains. Since it used to be the waiting room, the windows were large and the room was bright.
もう9時か。エミ、そろそろ起きなさい。
Oh, forgot to say, I'm actually also playing another visual novel on the side. Since Majikoi A4 was translated a couple of days ago, I've been playing that. It's been pretty fun. The Majikoi series is a series that you either like it or you dislike it. I personally like it. Maybe I will do an LP of it one day. I do have the first like 12 hours or so on Twitch when I try to stream it. I think it's different though, like streaming a visual novel, I think it makes me feel like I want to progress the story so much faster compared to just recording a video. So I probably will give it another shot as like in video format, but we'll see. I ignored Emmy's yawning and changed my clothes. I had to leave early in the morning and didn't have time to dally.
いや、早く起きてね。あ、またお姉ちゃん、またかぼちゃの種食べてる。うるさいわね。もう食べながら喋って行儀悪いよ。別にいいでしょ？好きなんだから。それじゃあエミ、ちょっと行ってくるわね。いってらっしゃい。お姉ちゃん帰ってくるまでおとなしく待ってるのよ。
The weather looked very much like spring. Harajuku Station was completely crowded. I walked past the station, staring at the commotion. I was still gnawing on pumpkin seeds. I started frying them myself.
それより少し急がないとさくらさん待ってるかも。
It was payday, and someone had to take the timesheet to them. My legs still hurt, but I accelerated my steps. I didn't need to use the crutches much these days. My legs had mostly healed. It's good to hear. I was waiting at an intersection when it happened.
ちょっとあんた。何しかとしてんのよ。そこのあんたのことよ。
Ah, and here I thought Japan was supposed to be the place where you mind your own business. I don't know, maybe in 1987, 1988, it wasn't like that. Or maybe it's just this district. I don't know. Harajuku doesn't seem like the type of district to be this way. It's not like this is Shinjuku.
私、
Someone was talking to me. It was a girl I didn't know. Technically, I'd met her before, but I didn't know her. She and her friend had hurled abuse at me before.
あんたさ、そのジャージ姿、マジやめてよね。そうそう。ここどこかわかってる？原宿よ。原宿。前にも言ったわよね。田舎者は目障りなのよ。
そんなこと、私に言われても。
I don't think that's what she said. I think she's like, even if you told me that, and then it's ... Because it doesn't make sense for her to say, what am I supposed to do about it, right?
これで2回目だからね。もう見逃せないわ。
It wasn't even noon, and I was surrounded by unlikable girls. I looked at the people around me. All of them pretended not to know what was going on. I didn't want to keep Sakura waiting. I ignored the pain in my legs and made a run for it. Well, tried. Yeah, she probably got tripped. Before I could take a second step, I was lying on the ground. The things I'd been carrying went tumbling everywhere.
何逃げようとしてんのよ。もう、他の人に迷惑でしょ。さっさと拾いなさいよ。
I picked up the timesheet, my wallet, and some other things. I had to make sure I didn't lose any of it.
ねえ、その種みたいなの何？あんた農業の人？ちょっと、聞いてんだから答えなよ。
これは、かぼちゃの種。美味しいから。
美味しいって食べるの？っていうか、種食べれるの？あんたリスか？田舎者は山に帰りなよ。
The two laughed at me. Meanwhile, I continued to pick up my belongings. Of course, they didn't help me. Everyone else who walked by merely avoided us. Even if my legs healed, I would always have difficulty running. I remember what the doctor had told me half a year before. At the time, I hadn't paid much attention to it.
ちょっと、あんたたちさ。
I looked up to see Sakura.
こんなとこで何やってんのよ。その子さ、いじめないでくれる？
しおりさんの
だったらどうなのよ。
あ、いえ、すみません。知らなかったもので。
I didn't know why, but the two cowed before Sakura. They clearly knew her. Perhaps they even feared her.
桜井さん、拾うの手伝うわ。いえ、もう大丈夫ですから。さ、ちなみにそれ、美味しいの？
She was gesturing towards the seeds. They were strewn across the pavement.
私は、美味しいと思います。わかったわ。
Sakura turned towards the two girls.
お前ら食え！
これをですか？
一粒残らず、きれいに拾って食っとけ。
いや、しおりさん、勘弁してくださいよ。
The way she talks, I guess that's how, like, those biker gangs usually talk in Japanese. I guess that's the impression that she's trying to make.
美味しいそうだから、遠慮しなくていいのよ。
So probably before she even got to this business or this job, it was pretty infamous or something.
すみません。助かりました。いいのよ。ここは私の地元だし、それなりに顔が利くからね。それに、仕事も仕事だからね。仕事？まあ、ヤクザじゃないけど、似たようなとこもあるし。大丈夫よ。あなたたちのは変な仕事じゃないから。それより、ついでにコーヒーでも入れるわ。
I'd handed over my timesheet. My job was done here. Sorry, there. But Sakura seemed to have nothing to do, so we drank coffee and talked. I was surprised to hear that Sakura was going to university.
さくらさんはここに住んでいるんですか？ええ、自分の部屋はあるんだけど、帰るのめんどくさくってね。そっか。 忙しいんですね。
それに、ちょっと親とも喧嘩しててね。
I was gonna say that's probably also the reason. I didn't ask why. She only grimaced at me. A young woman like her ought to live with her parents, I thought, and not sleep at her job. It was not a good situation. Speak for yourself, Kana.
ところで、桜井さんってなんて名前だっけ？
あ、カンナって言います。
じゃあカンナ。これは仕事と関係ないお願いだから、そう呼ばせてもらうわ。
あ、はい。
I didn't have a problem with that. It was just a bit sudden and it came with an ominous preface, I think.
それで、猫は見た？
いえ、まだです。エミは何回か見たらしいのですけど。
そう。エミは見たのね。
なんでも、すごく人懐っこいらしいそうです。でも、私と彼、ジンが行くと、すぐに逃げてしまうようで。
そうなんだ。
それで、さっき言ってたお願いは。
やっぱりいいわ。忘れて。
Oh, sorry. I left and made my way back to Harajuku Station. Nobody came up to me to bother me. Perhaps nobody ever would again. I could hear them whispering though. Nobody wanted to say it out loud, but they were still insulting me.
さくらさんは、不思議な人だな。
That's Sakurai and I say that typo. I could understand her influence in the area. But why she cared so much about a cat was a mystery to me. There not be some humbo mumbo jumbo. I don't know. A few days later, the sky was blue and beautiful. The crowds were out in force because of Golden Week, the holiday season. So this should be April or May. I think Golden Week is like May 3 to 5. Or it could be April 3 to 5. I don't remember. But it should be around there. The moment we stepped outside our plot, the crowd surrounded us. Of course, Harajuku was a popular attraction, and this was nothing new. We, on the other hand, lived as though nothing had changed. Encapsulated in our little world.
ポリポリポリ。あ、お姉ちゃん、また変なもの食べてる。変なものじゃないわよ。ひまわりの種よ。
Man, I feel like this story would have been so much different if Emmy was not here. I'm actually curious about what would have happened if Emmy wasn't here. Because the dynamic between Kana and Jing was very, very bad.
なんかリスみたい。いいじゃないの。好きなんだから。
I was chatting with Emmy in the afternoon. There was nothing to do. We were simply hanging out in my room. I'd been so bored lately I'd considered getting another job. But I'd always given up again. If I went out to work somewhere else, then I wasn't going to be in the station to earn money. It wouldn't actually net me that much more money working. Still, it all seemed so pointless.
こんちは。カンナいる？
あの声はさくらさん？さくらさん、こんにちは。
はいはい。エミ？
Oh, sorry.
さくらさん、どうかしました？
ちょっと近くに寄ったから、ついでに来たのよ。
あ、そうなんですか。
I had the feeling Sakura was coming by more often lately. 2 days earlier, she'd brought us our pay.
そういえば、アイス買ってきたから、みんなで食べましょう。やったー！嬉しい！溶けちゃうから早く食べましょうね。
ポリポリポリポリ。
What is she doing?
お姉ちゃん、いつまでひまわりの種食べてるのよ。
Hey, sunflower seeds are actually not bad. I used to eat them when I was a kid. As I grew up, I think they are less common being sold. They're more sold like on, roadside stores and whatnot here. I'm not sure if they're actually being sold on supermarkets. They might be, but just very, very rare. We walked over to the tracks and began to eat the ice cream. This area had been chilly in winter, but now the weeds were everywhere as it started to move into early summer.
そういえば猫ですけど、いつもこの辺りに来るんですよ。
それって、黒猫なのよね。
ものすごく人懐っこい猫だよ。
I don't know. It always runs away from me. During our search a few days earlier, we'd come up with the theory that it liked children. It'd been his idea, but I was starting to agree.
でもさくらさん、もし猫を見つけたときはどうすればいいのですか？
どうとは？
例えば、写真に撮るとか、捕まえておくとか。
I wonder how common pictures are back in 1987. They might be common. I mean, this is Japan. This isn't like third world.
さくらさん？
いえ、別に何もしないでいいわ。報告だけして。
はい。
It was an oddly half-hearted answer. On the one hand, Sakura seemed to be looking for the cat, but she also seemed to lack interest in it.
なんだ、お前も来てたのか。
A man was there. He was in his 40s. I'd never seen him before. The area was kind of off limits to outsiders. He must have snuck in, I thought.
あなた、何しに来たのよ。
ずいぶんな戦だな。仕事に決まってるだろう。
ここは私の担当だったはずだけど。
つまりそれは、俺の担当という意味でもあるよな。
Apparently, they knew each other. It was also clear they weren't on very good terms.
ああ、カンナは会ったことなかったわね。この人が社長よ。
社長って、ここのバイトの？
まあ一応ね。
はじめまして。確か、桜井さんと言ったかな。
はい。桜井カンナと言います。
I bowed politely. I couldn't be less than respectful to my employer. I was also nervous that he might have seen the crutches I'd hid near the entrance.
カンナ、そんなにビビることないわ。
でも、
ここは私の担当だから。社長と言っても好きにさせないから。
まあ、そうだな。期日までよろしくな。
That was all he said, and went over to the station building.
どうやらジンに用事があったのね。
彼に？
たまにヤバい仕事も手伝わせているみたいよ。
大丈夫なの？
さあね。あのおっさんの考えることはわからないわ。
It was afternoon, and I was in my room studying.
难不成有人来了？
I looked at the clock. It was just past 2. It was still a little early for Emmy to come visit me, but someone was outside talking.
啊，小冉在吗？
It sounded like Zhang.
好久没见了啊！都跑到这儿来了，有什么事吗？跟我走一趟，有工作。又是那些开发商？哎，别问，来就对了。这也是为你好。
As sketchy as this guy is, I feel like he truly just wants to show us how the world works to Jing. I don't know. I don't dislike him.
为我好。对，让你长长见识。
Though he is a bit way too aggressive, like what happened with the Chinese triad was way too dangerous for me personally. Fine. It only took me a moment to decide. What sealed the deal was his promise that I would learn something. I could just run away if things turned sour. He wasn't the sanest person I knew, and I had no idea what he was thinking. But if he thought there was something to learn, that might well have been true. I probably have the same opinion of him. We'd been driving for 2 hours already, much to my suspicion. The sun was starting to set. Most of the time we'd been on the highway, but we turned onto a smaller road by now. Zhang was driving. I was in the passenger seat, staring at the passing scenery.
还没到吗？快了。
We turned right at a large intersection. The traffic signs seemed to indicate we were driving towards the ocean.
话说，江先生，你有驾照？
That's a typo, right? I don't think I've seen license being typed that way. That's definitely a typo, I think.
当然有。
He showed it to me. It wasn't an international driver's license. Maybe not, I don't know. I mean, they did it twice, so I assume that's not a typo. But a Japanese one.
难不成你入日本国籍了？对，当年发生了点事儿。瞧你这表情，看不惯？没有没有。
I wasn't in a position to say anything, given that I was planning on going to a foreign university too. It wasn't out of the question that I might have to work there, get married, and get naturalized. I was already working in Japan.
可是，抛弃祖国，这就说明啊，你还年轻。
I would say that too, if I have any respect for my country, Jing. We drove for another hour. It soon became night. At last, we reached our destination. We were at the edges of some kind of port. Around us were long rows of industrial warehouses.
到了。对，货会运到这儿来。
I could only see the levee drenched in darkness. Even if we were in the right place, nothing legal was going to show up here. Some kind of smuggling operation was afoot. The question was how illegal it really was.
还以为干什么呢？也可以这么说。哈，来了。
A fishing vessel began to approach us from the bay. Their lights were incredibly bright in the darkness.
哎呀，比预计的要大呀！可都不算轿车，算公交了吧？公交？这不是渔船吗？别管了，快，帮个忙。
I was handed a number of flat packages, roughly the size of a book. Okay, what are we doing? The cardboard wrap was sturdy. Even with proper lighting, I wouldn't have been able to identify the contents. The fishing vessel pulled up to the levee. There was no unloading of goods as I expected. Instead, a considerable number of people began to leave the ship. Illegal immigrants, maybe? I finally understood. Goods weren't being smuggled. People were.
小然，别愣着，啊，发给他们。哦，好。一人发一本，别弄错了啊。
I was rather surprised by the situation. But Zhang wasn't in his element. About 20 people had already gathered around me. I began to distribute the packages as I'd been told. When they opened them, I could tell what they were.
我说，这是护照吧？
Yeah.
你别管了，里面内容都一样。
I mean, this is a pretty common tactic.
一样，这是假的。
Yeah, Chinese and their forgeries, man. I gave the passports a closer look and saw Hangul letters. Hangul? Okay. They were fake Korean passports.
他们是南朝鲜的人，说的是中文呢。就是中国人，在日本啊，南朝鲜国籍更不容易被发现。
Zhang was going around giving directions to the new passport holders.
问你们名字的话，就按本上的名字回答。坚持说自己是南朝鲜人，不管对方问到什么，都装作不懂，知道了吗？
I merely watched these events unfold. I wagered they knew they were committing a crime. They all looked even more desperate. Of course, I knew that people were entering the country illegally. But seeing it happen in front of me was something else. That's true. I mean, we already know
小
that,
然，吓一跳了吧？
you know, this is a common tactic that people, especially people who live in third world countries, do to get into a better country. But still, actually seeing it up front is quite something.
别以为所有人都能拿着正儿八经的签证，堂堂正正的过来。
I can't deny that.
也就是说啊，你小子是运气好。
I mean, it's probably not as hard as back then now. So I think nowadays it's actually not as lucky if you can just go to a country with a legit visa. Back then it was probably harder. Not to mention that, you know, the language was a lot harder without Google Translate and whatnot. And there were less English anywhere, especially somewhere if you go to China or Japan. And Korea too. There was nothing I could say.
那他们今后要去哪？
听说是去深山里修大坝
就一直在那里工作？
，3年内都没法回去。不过，他们自己也不想回去吧？前2年挣的钱抵路费，往后挣的才是自己的。
Damn, that sucks. The people who disembarked from the fishing boat got into a minivan. I stared at them and began to understand what I was supposed to learn here.
江先生，能不能问个问题？
什么问题啊？
为什么带我看这些？
这就是来钱多的工作，让你免费跟着学。
I mean, I don't deny that. The reason why Jing wants a job that doesn't pay much is because, like, I can't deny it. People who don't really think much about money really are a bit naive, in my opinion. I'm also a bit naive in that respect. But I don't know. I like my naivety. Is that the word for it? I like it. Like, I'm not that naive, but I do like to retain some of that naivety, or whatever you say the word.
这算是关心我啊？
开玩笑，看你小子这么天真啊，我来气。
Okay, that was a really nice chapter. I like that. Jung's character is definitely a lot more deep than what he lets on. I personally like the dynamic between Jung and Jing compared to Sakura and Kana. They're kind of shallow. I don't know what Sakura's deal is with the cat. Like, Jung probably also was searching for the cat, but for now we don't really know. And it seems like he's more of an interesting character so far. A child having to fake a smile hurt me deeply. That was the first time she called me Jing. Youth. It was June and the sky was sprinkled with white clouds. Okay, we're about 6 months, I guess? Halfway towards the year. So I think there's gonna be about 25 chapters. Hopefully, I don't know. Maybe the story is just gonna go much faster at a rapid pace. Because they did skip about a month or so from the last chapter, if they were talking about Golden Week before. The wind was warm, perhaps already a little too warm. According to the news, which I had picked up while looking at a television screen in a shop, we were entering the rainy season. I was surprised to find out that Japan had a rainy season too. It was going to rain a lot.
今天谁先出门啊？
私はどっちでも。
我今天也没啥要紧事儿。
We were standing in front of the timesheet. We were gesturing towards our rows and more or less understood each other. It was payday. Since we were both going out, it made sense to decide who went first.
ねえねえ、お姉ちゃん。何？早くアイス食べたいの？ そうじゃなくて、私は時給もらえないの？そういえば前も言ってたわね。ダメ元で聞いてみようか。
As I looked at the timesheet, she gestured at herself, me, and Emmy in turn. Was this the same suggestion she'd made before about splitting the wage?
不行，艾米还是孩子。
ああ、ハイズね。やっぱダメか。
Yeah, I guess she picked up that Heise is a child. Oh, sorry about that. Forgot to mute the mic. Our communication had gotten a lot smoother. That said, it was still limited to simple exchanges. Neither of us knew much of the other's spoken language, so we really needed to write it down a lot.
おはよう、ジン、カンナ。
あ、はい。おはようございます。おはようございます。
はいはい。エミは今日も元気ね。
今日はアイスの日だから。もう、先週も食べたくせに。
カンナもアイスくらいもっと買ってやりなよ。
Ah, these people that don't know about calories. Damn you. But then again, the Japanese, I don't really see any Japanese girls that are really fat. So I guess they probably know about calories. I didn't know what they were talking about exactly. But I realized Sakura had begun using Kana's first name. She'd called her Sakurai before. They seemed to be getting along.
それじゃ、お待ちかねのお給料よ。はい。
Oh, sorry.
はい。ありがとうございます。
She took it gleefully. Emmy was bobbing around next to her. They had such different personalities, but sometimes their reactions were alike. At times like this, it was obvious they were sisters.
ところで、今日はどっちから先に外出するの？
あ、それがまだ決まってなくて。
だったら、3人一緒に行けば？
Sanin? All three of us?
え？
And who's gonna stay at the building?
帰ってくるまで、私がここにいるから。
Do we still get paid? That's the first thing that came to mind.
やったアイスアイスでもそれは、さくらさんに悪いですし。
遠慮しなくていいのよ。そうでもしないと一緒に出れないでしょう。
The three of them had been talking for a while. I understood a few words and had a rough idea of what was going on. We'd been talking about who would go out first anyway. Apparently Sakura was suggesting that we leave together. She would hold the fort in the meantime.
我是无所谓啊。
Emmy was ecstatic, while her sister was showing a more conflicted reaction. We still weren't particularly close, but I wouldn't have expected her to resist the idea of going around the city with me so much.
わかった。それじゃあジンは、エミ連れて先に行ってて。
She pointed at Emmy and me. We were being sent out first. Yeah, without Emmy, things would be a lot more awkward. But I think it would be a lot more interesting too because of how awkward it'd be. It was noon in front of Harajuku Station. In front of the Harajuku Station. The weather was already a little uncomfortable, but there were many people in the streets. I found out a few days earlier that the reason I was seeing so many middle and high school students was that they were passing through on field trips. They go to Harajuku for a field trip? I thought if my if my knowledge based from anime is correct, they'd usually go to Kyoto or at least somewhere of a different town than Harajuku, which is just a couple of stations away. I would have thought they'd go to more historic places. But Harajuku is popular with young people.
ねえ、ジン、アイス早く買ってよ。アイス。
哦，好，买冰淇淋。
My reverie was interrupted. I don't know what a reverie is, but I guess it's like thought process. She always wanted ice cream. When we turned off into Takeshita Street, the crowds did not thin. I saw girls wearing eccentric clothes and guitar players on the sidewalk. Students passed by carrying branded bags. Octopus dumplings were a whopping 600 yen. think 600 yen isn't too bad. Especially since Japanese takoyaki is pretty good. I still had trouble getting used to this lavish display of wealth. Even the great schoolers around me were wearing adorably fancy clothes.
久等啦 ，Amy 的蛋筒。
ありがとう、ジン。
Emmy gleefully began to eat the ice cream. She was rarely treated to it after all. The little girls passing by in front of us probably attended some kind of private elementary school, judging by their cute clothes.
Amy， 你想不想去学校？
I wrote this down in my notebook and handed it to her. Wants school is what it said.
学校？うん、行きたい。だけど、私よりも。
She stopped. Instead, she looked at the high school students walking by in front of us. They were smiling, wore makeup, and their hair was dyed. They were eating the 600 yen octopus dumplings. I looked at them as well. I noted the stark difference with the one I knew, eating seeds by herself.
难道是在担心姐姐康娜吗？
カンナ？
对，康娜。
うん。私よりお姉ちゃんに学校に行ってほしい。本当は私知ってるから。お父さんもお母さんもみんな私のせいで苦労してるって。だから私は学校に行けなくても我慢できるの。
Emmy looked very sad. Of course, I didn't know what she was saying. But looking at her, I realized that she was forgetting to eat the ice cream she'd been looking forward to so much.
うわ、アイス溶けちゃう。
Oh, give me a sec here. I gotta turn off my night light. It's 7 o'clock right now. There we go. Amy began to eat again, but now she looked different.
ありがとう、ジン。これ美味しいね。
She smiled at me. She continued eating and smiling at me. But I knew it wasn't a real smile. She'd been like this before. Perhaps my inability to understand her language meant I understood this all the more. A child having to fake a smile hurt me deeply.
就这么定了。
I could understand his feelings about that. I really do feel bad for Akana and also Emmy. And also that fake smile business. I do hate that as well. I sort of understand Emmy's feelings actually. Being the smallest child in my family, it meant that I was probably the most spoiled. And I also probably had the most stuff given to me. Even though I know that I should be working instead of, you know, just taking things for granted. I whispered. I had to work up some courage in the middle of all these people. Wait, is he actually gonna do the stupid moonwalk thing again?
Amy， 你一直想看对吧？
Oh my god, alright, whatever, Jing.
呼んだ？
说想看 Michael。
This guy is crazy, I'm telling you.
どうしたの、ジン？急にマイケル始めて。
Emmy was shocked to see me breakdance. In a way, I was just as surprised.
ちょっとやめてって恥ずかしいから。
Well, I also thought it was embarrassing. There were a lot of people around us. Many of them looked at me suspiciously, wondering what was going on. Besides, the road was paved. And all I could do was the moonwalk, which ended up looking a little silly. Still, I kept it up what barely passed for breakdancing and said,
Amy， 我以前也说过是不是？ Michael 呢？是不能轻易让别人看到他。
何言ってるかわからないよ。
只有现在这个最特别的时候，才能看到。
Oh, sorry. Yes. I couldn't do this anywhere. People were surely thinking of me as weird. There was a chance they would celebrate, but it was low. I didn't want to be laughed at by high school students. But my biggest worry was getting reported to the police as a nuisance and being dragged off for questioning. So really, I could only do the bare minimum. A couple of awkward impressions of Michael Jackson. That was it. That was all I could do. I watched the two leave and turned back towards Sakura.
ねえカンナ、どうして一緒に行かなかったの？あなたって内気なとこあるから彼とか苦手なんでしょう。
That was exactly it. My shyness was even worse around boys. We'd already been there half a year, but I still wasn't using his first name.
でもそれだけじゃなくて
言いたいことあるなら言ってみなさい。ほら、お姉さん聞いてあげるから。
その服がないから。
は？服？
Sakura gave me a stunned look, but I was serious. I'd been worrying about this for some time. It was embarrassing. I hadn't mentioned it to anyone yet. When I was alone, it was alright, but walking in front of the station with my tracksuit was hard.
ちょっと安心したわ。
安心？
あんたもちゃんと女の子してたんだね。いつもジャージ姿だからさ、ちょっと心配してたのよ。
I guess that's something girls are more worried about. I personally don't think I care too much about what I'm wearing. Unless I look at myself in the mirror and say, damn, I look ugly. But, you know, I mean, as long as I'm covering what needs to be covered, is that really that bad, right? I don't think it's bad. She smiled at me.
じゃあカンナ、行くわよ。
行くってどこに？
そりゃ駅前。いえ、竹下通りの方がいいかしら。
はい？でもここ誰もいなくなりますよ。
少しくらい平気よ。それよりカンナ、夏場杖はもう必要ないのかしら？バカね。気づかないわけないでしょ。
Man, these guys are lucky that they actually met kind people, you know? I mean, it's really nice seeing this, I guess. But then again, this is a story. I followed Sakura away from the building. It's nice to see some nice people for a change. I mean, usually in games, there's gonna be, like, nice people too. But these people are a lot more realistic, I suppose. Because in games, usually the nice people are kinda a force, or they just have a predetermined role. Eventually, we reached Harajuku's bustling streets. I felt like I was being dragged into something, and I was surprised she'd known about the crutches. I thought I'd always kept them hidden, but apparently not. Besides, she'd kept me employed the whole time. There was no point in talking about it now. Sakura guided me onwards, oblivious to my uncertainty. Eventually, we reached a store. I knew it was a famous store, and it was full of young girls.
さあ、好きなの選んでちょうだい。
何が？
ここはさ、値段の割に結構いい服あるのよ。
さくらさん、よくわからないのですが。
つまりね、お姉さんがおごってあげるって言ってるのよ。
Sakura and I prowled the store afterwards. I could see cute clothes I'd seen on TV and in fashion magazines. There was something I'd had my eyes on since coming to Harajuku the first time. But yeah, as I said though, I still prefer Jung and Jing's dynamic compared to Kana and Sakura. It's just a lot more interesting. Right? I don't know.
ねえ、これなんていい感じじゃない？
それはちょっと派手なような。
ダメよ。これくらいコビコビのが可愛いのよ。
I had to fend off Sakura's suggestions at times, while I tried on different things.
似合うわよ。すごく可愛い。
When I saw myself in the mirror, I wasn't sure it was really me. You know, surprisingly enough though, this game shows interactions more from Emi and Jing than Emi and Kana, right? Which I also think is what makes me like Jing's story a lot more. Like, I understand Emi being a child, but she's also very mature for her age, and she shows consideration for the people that are working hard for her. But you don't really see that often in Kana's story. You see that in Jing's story, which I find pretty interesting. So she's faking it really well in front of her sister. I never had something other than a tracksuit. It was like an unknown girl was looking back at me.
ま、お姉さんも貧乏だから、ささやかなプレゼントよ。
どうも、すみません。
そうじゃないわね。
Where's the ta? I didn't hear that ta. Oh, there we go. She suddenly chopped me on the head.
やり直し。嬉しかったのなら、すみませんじゃないわ。
はい。ありがとうございます。
お、何よあんた。素直に笑えるんじゃない。その調子よ。じゃあ、街に繰り出すわよ。
The sun was beginning to turn orange. Commuters, both workers and students, filled up the station area. We were also still there.
もう、ちんたら、いきなりマイケルするんだから。
对不起对不起。
周りの人みんな見てるし、恥ずかしかったよ。
Emmy was pouting. Clearly, she was talking about earlier. She wasn't upset. She was just a little embarrassed, I thought. Well, I was even more embarrassed.
次から急にマイケルしちゃダメだからね。
She didn't seem sad when she pouted. She was back to her old positive self. Awesome, I thought. Mission successful. It hadn't been for nothing.
好嘞，那就再给你买个冰激凌好不好？
I pulled out my notebook and wrote, "Give ice cream."
やった！アイス買ってくれるの？
あ、こんなとこにいたのね。
ん？さくらさん。
お姉ちゃん、かわいい！
We met Sakura and Kana, who was trying to hide behind her. She wasn't wearing her simple tracksuit. But rather, a cute checkered skirt and red ribbons. She seemed to be uncertain and only glanced in my direction. She looked like a normal girl in Harajuku, and not out of place at all.
そうだお姉ちゃん、ジンがね、またアイス買ってくれるって。そうなの？うん、ありがとうジン。いつもエミがお世話になって、
She looked uncomfortable. Emmy had been thanking me, I was fairly sure. But was Kana now trying to thank me as well?
アイス代、また後で、あなたに。てい！
そうじゃないでしょ。あなたもダメ。やり直し。
Sakura suddenly chopped her on the head. I had no idea what was going on.
その、ありがとう、ジン。
That was the first time she called me Jing. Her new skirt fluttered a little, and she looked at me bashfully. I also felt a little embarrassed.
我才要谢谢你。看呐。
I looked up at the sky that evening in June. A large moon was peeking through the rain clouds. In the end, we all had a lot of fun together with Sakura that evening. Sakura was the only one who drank, but she drank enough for the rest of us. Emi was happy, having had ice cream twice. I remember Kana looking quite red the whole time, possibly because of her new clothes. Kana. I hadn't used her name much before. 6 whole months we'd lived and worked together. We were finally getting closer, I thought. That's pretty nice. 1988 summer. She's such a nice and honest kid. I know since I'm her sister. So I want to get another chance. Sincerity. Hey, even Jing got new clothes. Oh, it's almost an hour. Yeah, those 2 chapters are... I don't know. I guess they were pretty average in terms of length. The sky cleared during the dry days of the rainy season. Instead of the oppressive dampness, our skin was stung by the sun. A few early cicadas were already crying. Summer was close.
お姉ちゃん、ちょっと今日は暑いね。雨ばっかりも嫌だけどね。
Emmy and I were out in front of the station. We needed to get groceries.
そこ、なんか新しい店ができたみたいだね。ほんとだ。パスタってことは、スパゲティの店かな。
What the? New hairstyle!
スパゲティ大好き。
It actually looks pretty cute. I like that hairstyle.
ダメだよ。この辺のお店すごく高いし。
We'd almost never eaten out anyway. Even in the countryside, we'd usually cooked at home, and that one even more so for Harajuku. I was planning to cook rice in the rice cooker, and to buy some side dishes ready-made. Sometimes he, Jing, cooked a large meal for all of us. But generally, our meals were all modest.
ほら見て。ランチ2000円って書いてる。高すぎだよ。でも、人はいっぱい並んでいるね。みんなお金持ちだね。
The 600 yen fried dumplings in front of the station had surprised me. But 600 yen for a steamed meat bun was even crazier.
もしかしたら、ここでお店やったらいいのかも？お店って飲食店のこと？だってジン、すごく料理うまいし。それはいくらなんでも。
I began to say, but stopped myself. Emmy had said it on a whim, but it wasn't such a bad idea. Harajuku was certainly attracting a fair number of tourists.
あそこでオープンカフェをやりたいって？
Interesting, okay.
はい、エミが言い出したことですが、もしかしたらいいアイデアかなって。
I took the idea to Sakura as soon as possible. Whatever we did, we were going to need her consent.
なるほどね。確かに悪くないわ。
本当ですか？
あの線路の部分はそれなりに敷地あるからね。
But aren't you going to open up the station then, to let people in? Is that not a problem? I guess that's why she's, asking for permission.
はい。テーブルと机だけのオープンカフェなら大丈夫かなって。
何より立地がいいわ。原宿の駅前3分よ。
I nodded. It was fenced off at the time, of course, but that was to keep people away.
それに彼、ジンの料理はすごく美味しいし。
そりゃそうよ。だって彼、元プロの調理人なのよ。
そうだったんですか？
ええ。社長が言ってたから間違いないわ。
I hadn't known, but based on the food I'd eaten from him, I readily agreed.
まあ、とりあえずは、彼の協力が必要ね。
Yeah, the real question is, will he want to do
オー
it?
プンカフェ始めるよ。エミー、急にそんなこと言っても通じないよ。
I explained it to him in a more orderly fashion. Of course, I had to add written letters to supplement what I said.
なんでも今、ヤムチャってのが人気らしいから。それにジンってプロのコックさんなんだよね。
但是
I was sure he got the gist of it, but he wasn't very enthusiastic about it. Yeah, I mean, I think he didn't really have fond memories of his previous job. Eventually,
不好意思，我就不参与了。
he shook his head and showed me what he'd written. I didn't need to know the pronunciation to know what he'd meant.
那再见，我要看书去了。
ダメだったね。
唉，开不了，没办法的。
Besides, if we'd wanted to run a cafe, we'd have had to buy a lot of stuff, not just tables and chairs. Our single gas stove wouldn't have been enough. We'd have needed a larger fridge too. Besides, more than the cooking, the everyday management of the cafe would probably have been difficult. Time to switch perspective? Yep. I was studying in my room as I often did. There we go. Amy was hanging out in my room as well.
ねえ、オープンカフェやろうよ。
哎，你还在说这事儿啊？
だってジンの料理すっごく美味しいんだもん。
I had a rough idea of what she was saying. Amy hadn't stopped talking about running a sidewalk cafe since the day before.
それにカフェだからアイスもあるよね。
不早啦，你该回你屋啦。
This was a pretty normal conversation. I had to make sure to send her back to her own room at some point.
喂，趁还没睡着，回你屋去。喂，艾米。
She didn't answer. She must have been asleep already. I turned towards her.
喂，怎么了？
Something was wrong with her. She wasn't sleeping. When I touched her cheek, it was very hot. Her breathing was unsteady. She'd been fine only moments before.
エミー、そろそろお風呂の時間よ。エミー？
来得正好，他突然就……
エミー、しっかりして。どうしたの？姉ちゃん。どこか痛いの？苦しいの？お姉ちゃんに言って。頭がクラクラする。しっかりして。すぐお医者さんに連れて行くから。
This was the first time I had seen Kana look so nervous.
ねえジン、病院はどこに連絡すればいいの？
康娜，先冷静。
そうだ、救急車よ。早く、このままじゃエミが。
所以说，先冷静一下，这里没有电话。
She started crying. I never see this shy, quiet girl look so confused before. Perhaps they needed an ambulance. We didn't have a telephone, but there was a phone booth outside. I didn't speak Japanese. The person on the other end certainly wasn't going to speak Chinese either.
振作点，康娜。 你必须去叫救护车。
I did the best with the Japanese I knew and wrote it down in my notebook. Kana left to use the telephone booth. I spoke to Emmy to help calm her down.
Amy，还好吗？难受吗？
ちょっとクラクラする。
稍微等一下，马上就带你去医院。
I lifted up her body from the floor. The ambulance wouldn't be able to enter the grounds. I had to carry her out to the street. I'd carried Emmy's body before whenever she fell asleep. This time, she felt easier to carry. Her slender little body was as light and brittle as a feather. The ambulance arrived amidst heavy rain. They allowed the two of us to ride with Emmy to a nearby hospital. It only took around 5 minutes. Kana didn't say one word in the cramped ambulance. She was trembling as she looked at Emmy. It had become night. By the time they carried Emmy into the hospital, we had to wait in the hallway. Kana sat down on a bench and looked at the ground. Whatever I said, she only mumbled a yes in return. Her mind seemed completely absent.
ごめん、ちょっと遅くなったわ。
Hope she called her parents. Sakura had rushed over to meet us. I'd called her earlier.
心配いらないわよ、カンナ。この辺り、私も顔が利くから。
Okay, we're in her perspective now.
とりあえず保険証は後でいいから、ここは私に任せて。
I watched them for a while. Eventually, one of the doors opened and a doctor came out. When Kana, sitting on the bench, saw the doctor, she rushed over to him.
先生、エミは大丈夫なんですか？
落ち着いてください、桜井さん。
でも、このまま死んじゃう
大丈夫ですよ。ただの風邪でしょう。少なくとも心臓疾患に関するものではありません。
Kana sighed with relief. Just from looking at her, I could tell that much of her tension had disappeared.
ただ、まだ少し熱がありますので、一晩点滴処置させていただきます。
じゃあ、私が付き添いで残るわ。でも、いいのよ。あなた疲れてるわ。早く帰って休みなさい。ジン、カンナを頼んだわよ。
By the time we walked home, it was drizzling. Kana was visibly exhausted by the time we arrived. All the lights in the building were still on. We'd left in a hurry. I looked at the clock. It was 4 a.m. The sun was going to rise in an hour later.
ねえ、ジン。ちょっと座る？
She said something before walking towards the bench on the platform. I followed her. When I sat down next to her, she gave me a helpless look. Typo. This had happened before. On Christmas, with snow falling around us. It was a summer night now, and warm rain was falling.
今日はみっともないとこ見せちゃったね。
Kana spoke quietly. She'd lost her nervousness, replaced by a wary sadness.
エミなんだけど、実は心臓に病気があるの。
抱歉，用说的我听不懂的。
I tried to write into the notebook as always.
いいから聞いて。
She stopped me. She didn't want me to write. Maybe she just wanted me to listen.
あの子ね、3歳の時に心臓が悪いって分かったのよ。別にどこにでもあるありふれた心臓病よ。ただちょっと手術をするのにお金がかかるらしいの。でも医者の先生は子供のうちに手術した方がいいって。10歳くらいまでなら問題ないって。
She continued. The rain softly fell on the roof. Anna seemed to be speaking to herself more than anything.
でもね、それって10歳以上になると危ないってことなのよ。だからお父さんもお母さんも私も家族みんなで頑張ってきたの。だって早く小学校に通わせてあげたいじゃない。あんな素直で優しい妹なんだから。私はお姉ちゃんなんだから。
The June rains did not let up. The black sky continued to send more towards us. She continued to speak to me, and I still had no idea what she was saying. Still, she wanted to talk to someone. She wanted someone to listen. I knew that she wasn't worried about herself. So who was she worried about? It was obvious. She was worried about Emmy, whom she loved so much.
看呐，你能不能也听我说两句？
I closed the notebook. I returned the pen to my pocket too.
あなたも聞いてほしいのね。
其实啊，我已经没有家了。
I had relatives, but my parents had died.
但是我还清楚地记得小时候的事儿。我很崇拜自己的父亲，希望自己也能成为他那样的人。可是不知道从什么时候起，我好像就变了。
I couldn't remember when it had been. It hadn't been a sudden thing, more like a slow change.
所以啊，我想重新来过。
I got up and took a few deep breaths. Oh, sorry. I didn't know why I did it. Something had built up inside me. I was trying to get it out.
それいいね。よし、気が軽くなった。
看呐，谢谢你能听我说这么多。
ジン、聞いてくれてありがとう。
Neither of us knew what the other had said, but when we both took a deep breath, our load seemed to be a little lighter.
Hmm?
猫の声がする。
看呐，那边。
猫がいる。
The black cat had appeared in the rain. It was coming towards us.
何これ、すごく人懐っこい。
这就是艾米说的那只猫吧？
でも今までずっと逃げてたのにどうしたんだろう。
Sorry. She gave the cat a puzzled look. I nodded. We were probably thinking the same.
总而言之，今天就这样吧。
そうだね。
She nodded when I showed her the sketch I'd made.
でも、これ私、なんか変な顔。
She pointed at the sketch and grimaced. When she played with the cat in the rain, her sulky expression began to clear. Okay, I actually wanted to finish that that scene before I end the episode. I mean, I like that. I like the story. I like the backstory. If this was, I don't know how the story will end, but if this was a Nakige or, you know, an Utsuge, as you would call it, Emi would probably die in the end of the story. But this doesn't seem like that's that sort of story. Hopefully not. Hopefully not, yeah. But we'll see. Besides, I wanted to be able to speak with Emi and Kana. Yeah, it looks like they're opening the Seaside Cafe. Good on you, Jing. Midsummer, Chapter 15. Alright, I will end the episode right here, though. I just wanted to save my game right there. I don't know, I feel like... I said this on older episodes, but I really do like how the story is playing out in this visual novel. It doesn't seem like anything special, but I do like how the progression is. It's not rushed, it's not too fast, it's not too slow. I think it's the perfect balance. And I still have no idea what's gonna happen in the end. Maybe Jing will stay in Japan, he'll learn Japanese. Maybe he'll go back to China and do the best as he can. I think, like the story said though, like the synopsis said, this isn't really a romance story, so what's gonna happen is most likely these two won't be in a romantic relationship, which I feel like that's completely okay. I personally dislike it when people try to put romance in everything, you know, just because there's a guy and a girl, they always try to make things romantic. It's not always like that. But alright, enough babbling from me. I'm gonna end the episode right here. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I will take a short break, make some ice cream or something, and then I'm gonna come back and play some more. But yeah, I'll see you next time. Peace out.